Morning guys, I'm Dave Canterbury with the Pathfinder School, and I've had quite a few questions lately about making clothing and things like that, and we've done a lot of videos lately on weaving and building looms and different types of processes to weave on different looms. But we haven't talked too much about the hand type crafts with cordage like knitting and crochet and things like that, and those are very viable skills. The hat that I'm wearing now is 100% wool, and it was made by using simple crochet techniques. I'm also working on a set of half gloves right now. I can show you one of them. Dig it out of my haversack here. It's not quite finished yet, but it's also 100% wool, and it will be made to go underneath a set of fur mittens. So you have a basic 18th century style half glove that's made from wool, and you would put that inside of like a beaver mitten or something like that. So I'm working on the second one of these soon. I haven't started it yet. I've got a couple more rows I want to finish on this to make this just a little bit longer. So I've got this much left that I'm going to use to do that with, and then I'll go on to making the second one. But clothing like this, like hats and things like that, are simple to make. And a technique of crochet will allow you to make anything from a round to a square, and you can make anything as small as this half glove or a hat to as large as a blanket or some type of match coat that are all made from whatever materials you have available, up to and including wool fibers like this. And wool can be created with a drop spindle. You can make wool fibers from sheep's wool, or you can buy ready-made wool, which is what I did, that was already yarned and ready to be used. So let's talk a little bit today about the basics of how to do a crochet stitch and how to start something like this hat. One of the beauties, if you will, of this technique of crochet is that you can make a crochet needle like this one out of natural material. This one's just made out of a stick. And all you're really doing is almost carving a pot notch hook that's been beveled over here, and then you match this to the size of yarn or whatever you're using to crochet, whatever the material is you're using. And this one is fairly large, but I made it that way so you could get a good visual on what it looks like. This one's made out of oak. You can buy commercial ones that are made of metal, and I've bought the commercial wooden ones because I thought they looked nice and traditional, but I break them. And maybe that's just because I strong-armed it or something when I was first learning to do this, because I'm by far from an expert. But I've got 3 different size needles in this leather case, and they go in sizes of millimeters. And when you buy a thing of yarn like this one, and it says this is a Love This Wool brand, pay attention to this thing and make sure it says 100% wool on the label, because a lot of them are not. And then it will also tell you on the label what size hook or needle you should use with that material. And this one calls for like a 5.5 size needle, which is this size, which is quite a bit different next to the one I made from wood. So this would be made for a lot larger fibers. But you could use this for anything from hemp cord to paracord to jute twine to yarns of different materials, from acrylics to wools. But if you don't mind spending a little time to do things, it's a pretty inexpensive way to make some fairly nice stuff. This hat that I'm wearing now, it's about 19 or 20 degrees out here today. The sun's shining, but it's plenty cold. I do have a fire going beside me that I'm smoking a hide with here, so it's really just smoking. It's not putting off a lot of heat. And this hat is all I want on my head and then some. I'm actually a little bit warm in this hat. So something that you make like this might take 2 or 3 hours, maybe 4 hours to make. This whole thing of wool only cost $5 and something, I believe it was, at a store. And it's enough to make this hat and both gloves with some left over. I actually made a hat for my grandson out of the same, what they call skein of this yarn that I made this hat and that glove out of. So there's enough there to make both the gloves and the hat for $5. You just got to invest the time. So let's talk about the basics of this real quick. And you know, always with me, there's a method to the madness. And the one thing that I really like about this technique in particular is that the entire premise of crochet is based on chain stitching. So once you're done with the project and maybe you're wearing the hat or you're carrying the bag that you made or whatever the case may be, let's say you made the thing out of jute and all of a sudden you need that jute for something else, maybe to start a fire, maybe to lash up a shelter in an emergency or anything like that. You can cut the last knot that you tied and just pull on it and the whole thing will come undone back into usable cordage. So when you do this, basically all you do is you start with a loop, and just a slip knot loop where you just tie an overhand knot on the line just like that, and that gives you a loop, and you put that over that needle just like this, and that is the way you start everything. And you have what's called a base chain, which is just a series of chain stitches as long as you want to start your project out. I'm going to put the camera over my shoulder to show you this, but it's very, very simple to do. It's no different than I've been doing to store the things that I've been weaving on the loom. When I pull the line through itself, or when you store a climbing rope or something like that, you want a daisy chain to throw it over the side of a cliff and unwind by itself as it falls. This is the same technique to make this base chain. So let me reposition this camera and I'll show you this real quick. Okay, so we've got our slip knot, and I'm just going to snug that up, not all the way, just giving myself a little bit of a gap there. And then I'm going to put the working end of that line over the top of that needle and just pull that through that loop, just like that, and make another loop. Wrap it around again and pull it through to create another loop. Wrap it around again and pull it through to create another loop. And that's giving me that daisy chain of stitches. And when I'm done with that, I have a chain of stitches there, and if I pull on that, they all come undone. Again, that's the beauty of this whole thing. One thing that I found myself doing when I first started messing with this is I found myself trying to strong arm this thing or kind of muscle it. And really, you're better off if you keep this stuff fairly loose when you're doing this, because if you try to do it by pulling everything really tight, you end up getting hung up. And what you really want to do is you want to, as you're pulling that needle through, you want to kind of turn it down so that it slips right through just like that. Wrap another one over, turn it down and pull it through. Wrap another one over, turn it down and pull it through. Just like that. Until you get the amount of stitches or chain that you want there. And again, if you come out of it, don't worry about it. Just stick it back over the needle. Okay? And once you get the amount that you want there, that's where you're going to start your project, and you're going to stitch into this chain. Alright? Okay, so let's talk about a hat. Now, like I said, when you first start messing with this and you first start a project out, it gets a little tedious, especially if you got big hands and you're working with small stuff. But what you're going to do is you're going to turn this into a circle. So what you really need to do is you need to come back through this very first stitch here, put the needle through that, then come over the top again like this, and pull that stitch through both of those like this, so that you've got a circle there. And now what you've got is you've got that loop sticking out, and you've got a little circle with 5 stitches. And like I said, this is where it gets a little bit tedious when you first start doing this. Alright? Because now what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go back through each one of these stitches, because now you're going to start to do a crochet stitch. And a single crochet stitch, if I can get that out, is very simple, but again, it's kind of tedious and awkward with a small thing like this until you get it going, you get it bigger. So you're going to look for that first chain, and you're going to come through that first chain. So now I've got 2 loops around my line. I'm going to go around the needle and pull it through the first loop, just like that. Then go around the needle again and pull it through both loops, like that. Go to the next stitch over and do the same thing. Around the needle once and pull it through. Around the needle a second time, getting that tag out of my way. and pull it through both. Go to the next stitch, do the same thing, go through once, come through one, like that. And if you lose your place, don't worry about it. Just go back to where you were at, okay? So I need to go through that stitch, come around, pull it through one, go around, pull it through two. Then I go to the next stitch and do the same thing. Go around the needle, pull it through one, go around the needle, pull it through two. And this is all just a big chain stitch that I'm making. Again, you don't want to make this tight, you want to leave it pretty loose because your needle will slide easier that way. And then you just continue that in a circle. So once you've went around the circle, all you do is just keep on going. You pull it through one, and then you pull it through two. Again, keep it relaxed. Don't try to strong arm it through there. Go to the next stitch, go over the top. That tag's going to get in your way for a while when you first start. You could trim that off if you wanted to. Once you get going, it won't be in your way anymore. And just keep looking for your most outside stitch. Through one, over the top, and through two. Through one, over the top, and through two. Through one. Make sure you pay attention now. I almost went through a double there. You want to go through the middle of that stitch, not underneath it. And what this is going to do is this is going to start to turn into a little bowl circle thing on you here, like this. And that's going to be the top of your hat. Now what you're going to have to do to get this thing to flatten out and get big enough for your head is you're going to have to do doubles in here, which means you're going to do an increase of the amount of loops you've got around the circle that you're sewing into. That'll keep it from cupping up on you so much. So what you're going to do now is you're going to go to your first stitch. Right here you've got a stitch in this loop. You're going to make a second stitch in that same loop, just like this, and that's going to give you double the amount when you get all the way around. So when you go to your next one, you'll pull it through one, you'll pull it through two, and then you'll come right back again and go through that same hole again. So you'll go right back through that same stitch and do that same thing again. And it helps, whoops, missed that one. It helps a lot if you count these things so that you know where you're at. Because you're probably not going to be able to see it. So this is another stitch. We're going through it once. And we're going to go through it a second time around. Pull it through one. Pull it through two. Go to this next outside stitch. Pull it through one. Pull it through two. And then a second time again. Because now we want to increase the diameter of this thing. So again, now we're trying to increase the diameter of this circle that we've got to work in here. So we're doubling up on every stitch. Every time we go through here, we're going to do it twice. So we're going through once, and then we're using that same exact hole in that last stitch, and we're going through it again. Just like that. And then we go to the next one, and we do the same thing. And we do that all the way around the piece, and we really need to count as we go around, so we know if we started with 5, we should now be going around 10 times. We should now do 10 stitches. And then if we do another increase, it'll be 20. And if I remember right, when I did this hat, I increased 3 times and then reduced 1 time when I got to the brim of the turn up of the hat to make that a little bit tighter, which means I just skipped a stitch every time. And that gave me a larger crown on the hat and a tighter circumference around my head. And you can see what we're getting now. We've got a big circle here that we're doing. And you just keep doing that And keep doing that until you get to this. And it's going to, you can see what this is going to turn into is this center portion of the hat. And you're just going to keep going and keep going and keep going. And one side of this, you'll see the lines in it right here. The other side of it, you won't. And that's kind of a personal preference. Which side you want in or out doesn't matter. So this is this side of the stitching. Pull this out of here for a minute so you can see it. This is this side. And this other side that's got the line showing in it is the other side here. And that's how this hat was made. But understanding and getting that basic crochet stitch down, once you get that down, it's pretty simple. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out the glove that I'm working on, and I'll show you how I'm straight lining that in a circle. Okay, so with this glove, what I did was I started with that base chain, and I did, I believe it was 30 straight stitches on this thing. It was just enough to where I could put it around my wrist, around right here, so I knew it would stretch out, and it fit. And I did stitches all the way up just in a circle, because when I got those 30, I just pulled it together just like we did with the hat, and then I just stitched around and around and around and around, which I'll show you in just a minute. When I got to this point right here where I was going to put my thumb hole, all I did was skip over enough stitches to get my thumb in there and did a daisy chain just like I did on my base chain in a circle here, just like this, and forgot this was here, and as I went around I just stitched over that, and that gave me that thumb hole right there that I wanted in the glove. And again, depending on which side you turn this is going to give you a different look as far as what the stitches look like. This is actually going to be the inside for me. Now what I've done here to save my place is I just took my loop and I just put a lark's head in there. So all I have to do is put my needle back in there and I'm ready to go again. And so this is just a basic simple single crochet just in a circle. So I go from one loop, pull it through once, go up, pull it through both, go to the next one, go through, pull it through one, pull it through two, go in, pull it through one, pull it through two, and just continue around in a circle like that. And that's going to add length to this mitten as I go around. And I'm kind of doing this in an awkward position so I can show it to you, but it's pretty simple. Once you get used to the fact that you can just hold on to the string with this hand, shove it through this loop, and the understanding really is all you're doing is picking up the line and pulling it through a loop like a daisy chain, coming back through, picking it up again, and pulling it through two loops. Once you get that concept down, then everything else is easy, because that'll allow you to get a little faster. When you first start doing it, you'll fumble around a lot. And if you get hung up in threads, don't worry about it. Just pull it all out. Get back to a point where you were good. And start back and go back to it again. It's not that big of a deal at all. Now if I'm getting ready to stop, I just leave this last loop and I pull my needle out of it. And then I just take a piece of spare cordage and I put it through the loop like this and just tie a quick lark's head in there. Just like that. That way that stitch can't pull through. And that's how I store the project, is just like that. Okay guys, well I hope that wasn't too confusing for you. I tried to get up as close as I could. It is fairly small material that I use to make this hat with and to make that glove with. But manipulating cordage, using basic knots and things like that, loops and hitches to create usable and wearable items like this wool hat and that wool half glove gives you another tool in your box to be able to manipulate natural materials to your advantage. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, for our business, for all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. I'll be back with another video as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.